So let's talk today about going back to analog, or at least partially. Thank you for being on the podcast. My name is Peggy van der Plas. It's great to be here with you. So the thing with screen and social media is that we know the damage. We just pretend we don't actually. So it's very well documented now, the damage of social media and screens on brain, social skills, attention span, personal relationship. Just a few data points you might have heard already. The average adult screen time now is plus 7 hours a day outside work. The attention span is 8 seconds. I'm sure you learned that it is less than a goldfish. And heavy social media use is also associated with high anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, but also lower real life social competence, especially in teens and children. So we know it, and still here we are, when you see family and friends dinners, now it's often a group of individuals that are sitting to each other, but are looking at their phones, curating their profile, answering to messages from people who are actually not in the room. And we used to call that rude. Now it's normalized. And I mean, phobbing, that concept of phone snubbing, meaning you ignore the people with you and you're on your phone. It is now a studied phenomenon, and it correlates, I would say, obviously, with lower relationship satisfaction, but also reduced empathy. So one thing I also want to mention is that parents really lead the way, whether they like it or not. Like parents model the behaviors and children will copy these behaviors. And the data is sobering. I mean, you have, I don't know, many studies that are actually showing significant increase in playground, daycare accidents because the parents are distracted with their phone. The reaction time drops, the supervision drops, the presence drops, but the phone never drops. So you can see that more and more, at least I see that in my neighborhood, going for a walk with a kid means putting them in a stroller or some type of fancy carriage, putting earbuds in, and listening to a podcast or, watching something on the phone. So obviously, well, not a lot of movement for the kid and zero interaction. So what is the solution from Silicon Valley? Brace yourself. Well, obviously, the solution promoted is more apps to help you be on social media less. I mean, I really love the irony. Another solution pushed by the opposite extreme is landlines and flip phones. Okay, not super attractive either. So I have to admit, I love my phone. I really love my phone. I can do, like I can pay with it. I have maps if I need to. I can obviously check the time, listen to music, audiobooks, stay in touch. Anyway, what you're doing with your phone. I really love it. And I have to say, I do love my phone. I mention it many, many times to many people. It is one of the items I use the most. But you know what? During the holidays, my average daily screen time was 19 minutes, 19. So because, well, guess what? I didn't need a phone. So as much as I see the value of screen and phone, well, I am not stuck to it. So why didn't I never had any issue with screen time? So first thing, from my perspective, nothing beats paper. So I read books and fashion magazines the old way, with my hands using paper copies. First, I love it. Second, less screen time. But more importantly, I love it. I just love paper. And yes, of course, my news apps, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, Economist, all of that, it's on my phone, but I don't spend the same amount of time reading them as I do with books and magazines. So the beauty with papers is that it kind of slows you down, while screens, they really speed you up, and speed, as we realize, that is not our friend. Another thing that really helped me and that has helped me early is that I put some ground rules in place. So when I was a teenager and that internet became a thing in France, I quickly established a rule for myself. I don't click on clickbait links. I know I was definitely ahead of my time. I realized that, but I saw already at the time how slippery that slope was and how much time I could waste feeding myself with garbage. So I have never, ever doom scrolled or watched whatever recommended video by YouTube or things like that. I go on the internet to do what I have to do, not one more thing. I do allow myself one guilty pleasure once in a while. I'll watch a fail army video because that does make me laugh. But that's the extent of what I do that is not with a purpose. Technically, there is a purpose. It makes me laugh, but anyway, you get it. And for me, it's really a parallel I will make with drug because you might think, oh my God, my way of managing it requires a lot of willpower. And actually it does. It's exactly the opposite. I don't do drugs recreationally. I never had. Not because of moral superiority, but because I've always assumed I am not exceptional. If many people fall into addiction, statistically, I would too. So I don't test the slope. And that's the same thing with, the screen time, the drugs. I know there is danger there, so I don't even go there. And so another parallel is when I was 20, I got my first apartment and I created another rule. I never drink alcohol or smoke at home, ever. Except, of course, if I'm hosting people or if it's, I don't know, a birthday or New Year's Eve or something like that. But so when everyone was drinking like there was no tomorrow during the pandemic, I didn't drink for 18 months. Again, it's not a superhuman willpower. It is just a very clear couple of ground rules that I have established early. So even before there was any habit. So I didn't have to break a habit. I didn't have to break an addiction because I never even went there. And I think that's the parallel I really want to make with drugs, that, well, you just don't go there. There is, I think, that quote, just don't become a junkie. Well, that's a bit that. I also have a couple of competitive advantages, to be totally honest. The first one is that I get very bad headaches and very dry eye. So like my eye get very painful with too much screen time. And for me, the threshold for too much is not very high. So that, to be fair, is also helping me. And also as a child, we had a very small TV at home. And my mother was not keen on turning it on. She really didn't like TV. She thought there was only garbage on TV. So I don't come from a screen always on household. So a book was my escape. It still is. So that, I have to say, is probably a couple of unfair advantages I have to say for me to not be addicted to screens. And there is obviously a big downside, to be totally honest with you, is that I am completely unaware of pop culture. The trends, the memes, who's dating whom, the latest conspiracy theories. I have absolutely no clue. Unless it shows up in a business publication or in a fashion magazine. And even that, half the time, I don't understand because I don't have the context, so I don't understand the references. And it's very similar than when I was a child. I am often not in the know. Let's be honest. Sometimes it is annoying, but the downside of not knowing, the latest TikTok theory or the dating status of someone, I would not recognize anyway on top of that. The downside is really pale, in comparison to the upside of not being glued to my screen. So what about you? Are you doom scrolling? Do you have your own rules that you don't break? If you don't, should you have some ground rules? What behaviors are you modeling consciously or unconsciously? And again, going back to analog doesn't mean going backwards. It's more choosing presence over noise. And that actually, it is a competitive advantage. And when I say a competitive advantage, in the way you live your life, I'm sure when you die, you will not regret the number of hours you spend on your phone. You will probably more regret not interacting with people when they were next to you and you were updating your dating profile, for example. So thank you so much for being with me. Curious to hear your thoughts on that, if you have any thoughts, and talk to you next week. Bye-bye.